Welcome on in to another action-packed and live edition of the Between the Hash Marks podcast. As always, I'm Matt Lombardo, joined by my friend, colleague, mentor, and the purveyor of the Two Deep Zone. Mike Tanier is back from the Senior Bowl, back from Mobile, and as someone on YouTube commented last week, back from calling in from purgatory because the internet situation was suboptimal in the land of 1,000 fountains. But Mike, it's great to see you here.
How bad was the audio?
Audio was fine. I listened to the audio driving to pick up cheesesteaks that night. The audio was perfect. It was the video component that made it a little bit sketchy, but that's fine. If you're not on the live pod, who cares? You can listen to it anytime, anywhere.
There's not much to see, and I feel like I'm calling in from purgatory today as well. First of all, thanks for everyone who chased us from link to link to link. We had a little, technical issue on our end, a couple of old guys. And also, let me ask you this. How shoveled out are you right now?
Yeah, I fortunately, personally, I'm shoveled out. Because when the storm happened on Championship Sunday, I went out, shoveled 3 or 4 different times throughout the day. But the next day was brutal. The next day, I had to shovel out the end of the driveway where like everything gets compacted in by the snow and the ice. And my next door neighbor is kind enough to give me the salt, and he had one of those ice scrapers. I could scrape some of it as I went. So at Chateau de Lombardo, we are shoveled out. But the route that we walk, the sidewalk route to get to the bus.
Yes.
Not great. The mountains of snow are yay tall. So we have to walk through some side alley, across another cross street just to get to the bus stop. It's like planes, trains, and automobiles getting from our house to the bus stop each morning.
And it's been 11 days since it snowed. It's been 11 days. But you can't fault the people along the way, because people who couldn't shovel out the first couple of days, usually talking about senior citizens, folks who might just not have the ability to handle that type of thing. But the mounds at that size, you could lose your kids in those mounds.
My son tried to climb one of them at the bus stop because I bring him along because I have to drop him off at daycare afterwards. He tried to climb one of those mounds, and then when sliding down, because it's like snow concrete now, it's like a sheet of ice on top. He went sliding down almost into the road, trying to get down from the mound after the bus left. I'm like, buddy, come down. He just slid like his butt was a snow tube.
Well, it's great to be that age because you can do stuff like that. But I had to dig my car out after being gone for 5 or 6 days, and it was basically granite. It is like white granite around the car. That was Sunday. Now I'm watching the temperature. I guess 33, 34 and a half. And I am going to go out there with a flamethrower today and finally put an end to this. Just in time for more winter weather coming at the end of the week. Probably not going to be that bad, though.
Yeah, I hope I know the groundhog saw the shadows, so we might get 6 more weeks of winter. But I'm done. Give me the springtime. I want to be able to use my deck again. I want to get outside. I am over the snow. And like you said, it's just starting to melt today. A balmy 33 degrees here in the Delaware Valley.
That groundhog came out of the shadows, saw Mike McCarthy was going to sign him to a coaching gig, ducked back in as fast as he could. Like, whoop! Oh, wait, the Browns haven't picked their head coach yet? Whoop! Went back in. Not sure they had picked their head coach by then, but you can understand Punxsutawney Phil being a little nervous this time of year.
We're going to talk a lot of coaching carousel, even more Super Bowl preview. I'm going to try to calm you down, my friend, with some of your Eagles worries, because I know you have a little bit of trepidation about some of the recent news. We're going to get into all that and a whole lot more. If you enjoyed the podcast, please go ahead and subscribe in the Apple Podcast Store. You can check us out on my YouTube channel at Matt Lombardo 975. More importantly, if you enjoyed Mike Tanier's storytelling, the analytics deep dives, this column on Monday, this walkthrough is quintessential Mike Tanier, because you got the preamble comparing the coaching searches across the league to Darth Vader and his handling of his top lieutenants on the Death Star. Subscribe to the Two Deep Zone on Substack. If you enjoy the features that you get at Between the Hash Marks, some of the insider reporting, subscribe to Between the Hash Marks on Substack as well. And leave us those 5-star reviews on the podcast, because they really do help grow the show. They make it easier to find, and we read them each and every week.
Yeah, absolutely. Please support us. It's an attention economy, and we crave your attention, and we have a hard time getting it when the Substack link doesn't work and we have to resend it 5 more times.
Yes, this way at least you get to find us through the podcast store and through the YouTube and
Yes.
wherever else. But we're
Yep.
thrilled that everybody that's been able to make it here made it here following link date 2026. But let's start right here with the Eagles because I know it was at the
Yeah.
top of the outline, so it's a top of mind concern for you. The news of the week it kind of snuck up on us on Sunday. The
Yes.
reporting that the Eagles were a little bit worried, maybe still are a little bit concerned that Vic Fangio might be retiring, might not be back in 2026.
Yeah. And my feelings on this is that we all have to do our part. Okay. So we talked about shoveling. I think next snowstorm, I think we, as Philadelphia residents, people who grew up Eagles fans, still have Eagles fandom, we need to shovel Fangio out. It's a little gesture I think we can do to start. And also, next time we have a big storm, get some ziti over there, some baked ziti, some
I'll
rigatoni.
bake the ziti. Yeah, I'll bake the
You,
ziti, send the garlic cheesy bread, all those things, get it over to his house.
you're volunteering to bake the ziti because you don't want to shovel them out. I'm sa- I'm saying we bring a phalanx folks with shovels. We shovel everything out. We get some of the beach chairs. So when he pulls out, that we like preserve his parking spot for him. We have to do all we can. I guess my question is, you might be a little more tuned in to this certainly than I am right now. What's the risk level really like that Vic Fangio is retiring?
Yeah, from what I can gather, they were pretty spooked by a conversation or two that they had with Vic Fangio about his possibility of retiring and walking away for good, hanging it up, so to speak. But
Yes.
the reporting that's come out since Sunday, the organization seems confident that he'll be back, but
Okay.
Mike Garafolo reported that they did some preliminary internal work on Jim Schwartz and
Yeah.
Jonathan Gannon, which I think is really interesting. And I wanted to
Right.
pose this question to you that if you could sign up for 2+ years of either Jim Schwartz or Jonathan Gannon, or one more year with Vic Fangio, knowing that if he's considering retiring now, probably going to either walk off into the sunset after maybe a Super Bowl run next year, or just decide that next year it's time to go. Would you take 2+ years of Schwartz and Gannon, or would you rather run it back with Vic Fangio one more time?
2027 is 2027. That's an eternity away. Keep Fangio for a year. I don't want Gannon at all. Like, been there, done that. We've been there, done that with Schwartz, but it was years ago. And he's done a better job as a coach in the interim since then, even though he's been stuck with the Browns. So let's bring Fangio back if he is willing for another year. And then who knows? He could be revitalized by a better situation, or walk off into the sunset after a really successful season, or have a handpicked successor that we know for sure is the handpicked successor. I prefer all those possibilities than saying, oh, well, we're going to run it back with 2 more years of Schwartz, when Schwartz is out there possibly just angry right now about the Brown situation because he got passed over.
Yeah, and I think that when you look at the handpicked successor, I think it was going to be Christian Parker, the
Yeah,
secondary
yeah.
coach, and he got hired as the defensive coordinator of the Dallas Cowboys. Now, this is me just kind of spitballing and speculating here. I do wonder how much losing Parker, who Fangio viewed as a rising star in the building, might have factored into some of this decision making and some of this thought process, some of this pondering of retirement. I'm inclined to agree with you that if you had your choice of bringing back a Schwartz or a Gannon, that you would prefer to keep Fangio because of continuity. A
Yeah.
lot of young players on that defense that are used to the system, used to this scheme. They've kind of come up in this system. I'd be really tempted by Jim Schwartz. I would be really tempted by
Okay.
the opportunity to bring Schwartz back. Top 5 defense in Cleveland across the board.
Yeah.
Players love him. They run through a wall for him.
Right.
I wrote in the column this week, and I'm sure we'll touch on it a little bit later, what a disaster it was, how they handled that interview process with Jim Schwartz as a potential head coach. So I reached
Oh,
out to
God.
a coach who was on the staff when I was a beat writer in Philly. And I said, what do you think about this? And he goes, I really don't have a strong opinion, but I'll tell you this. Jim thinks differently, unquote. So he's a different kind of thinker than most people are. So I wonder if he has the opportunity, seeing kind of the handwriting about Nick Sirianni's future a year or two down the line, and maybe how,
Uh,
if this goes well, I could be in the ascent
it,
to the big chair. Maybe it's an
he,
advantageous opportunity for him.
right. You know, he can have the best of both worlds because the Browns will probably bring him back with a financial apology
Yeah.
for a year, and then who knows what happens for a year after that. So Schwartz can do both of those. You weren't on the beat with him. He's a good interview. He's good for the media.
Yes. Yes.
Um, I think the rising star now on Fangio's staff is probably Clint Hurt. I wanted to make sure I got the name right. Clint Hurt was down there in Mobile. He was coaching a team. Very impressed by the energy of the team and his energy. He's a holler guy
Yeah.
for the ages. But you're right. It was just lost a top lieutenant, somebody that was very respected to the Cowboys, and that probably had Fangio thinking, "Why am I coming back when the guys I liked working with aren't here, and maybe I don't like all the other guys I'm working with right now." I can see him going through that thought process.
Yeah, I remember Clint Hurt just being a monster in Seattle when he was on that
Okay.
staff. Just a guy that would like get in the players' faces on the sidelines, motivate them. I think he's one of the guys that helped really get the most out of Leonard Williams when he landed
All
there.
right.
So, if Clint Hurt is the defensive coordinator in waiting, I think Eagles fans should feel pretty good about that. And I also think, maybe you disagree here, I'm also optimistic from their perspective about Sean Mannion, the offensive coordinator hire.
Talk me into it, please.
Yeah, I wrote about this on Monday in Four Downs. Former quarterbacks tend to make pretty good offensive coordinators, right? And I look at the quarterbacks gurus that he's played under and coached alongside. He played for Sean McVay. He played for Kevin O'Connell. He's been the quarterbacks coach for Matt LaFleur. So if you're talking about coaches who speak the language of quarterback and build their philosophies around the quarterback position, those are three of the best in the business outside of maybe Kyle Shanahan and what he's been able to do in San Francisco. But Nate Tice had a really fascinating piece of data early in this season. Since
Yeah,
2021, Jalen Hurts' rate of passes to the intermediate middle of the field, 10 or 22 air yards in distance from the line
yeah,
of scrimmage, has consistently ranked near the bottom of the league in 2025 at a historic low,
yeah.
ranking 167th out of 168 qualified quarterback
All right.
seasons since 2021. So you heard about some of the whispers that I heard from people in other buildings about the reluctance to throw over the middle
Yeah,
and those sort of things about Jalen Hurts. Well, when you look at what the Packers did, Romeo Doubs lived over the middle of the field and in the intermediate routes. Tucker
right.
Kraft feasted on those routes. So it really feels like the Eagles might have seen some of those worries, some of those concerns in the passing game, and they figured, okay, let's get a guy who can fix what's broken for us. Because you look at what they were able to do in Green Bay, even with Malik Willis. You toss a
Right.
Super Bowl MVP quarterback with Jalen Hurts with maybe some of these concerns, with a coach who thrives in that type of field position, I think it unlocks their playbook a little bit.
There's layers to this. Okay. And the first one is, you know why former quarterbacks wind up being good offensive coordinators? Because they're the only ones who get the jobs.
True.
Your last name is either Shanahan, Kubiak, LaFleur, or you're a former quarterback, even if it's at a lower level. So there's that element. And okay, Hurst tuned out a lot of coordinators along the way to get to this point where he doesn't throw over the middle, including Sirianni, and he has tuned out Patullo to a degree. He tuned out more. He's going to listen to a 33-year-old with a year and a half of coaching experience. That's you know, I guess in my head I
I
had
wonder if there's
Kingsbury or
ever a relatability factor there.
okay, okay,
You know what I mean? Like,
right,
if Patullo doesn't speak his language or Brian Johnson didn't speak his language, I
right,
wonder if maybe a 33-year-old, almost on a peer level, can look him in the eye and say, "Yo, Jalen, this was here." Like, you
right,
know what I mean? Kind of like, look at this still shot. Here's where you should have gone with the ball. Here's when you
right.
should have gone there. I almost wonder if that works a little bit better, because I don't know about you, but some in my work environments, I've felt most productive when my direct superior or my editor was in my age range and we could
Okay.
debate back and forth and have those kind of on the level conversations, see things very similarly versus the autocratic, boomer aged editor who was his way or the highway.
Right, and all of these coordinators, except more and more, played a little bit in the NFL, were guys who had not gone out there. I mean, Mannion did go out there. He didn't go out there a lot, but he went out there, and as recently as 2 or 3 years ago, he was out there as a backup quarterback to Geno, going through progressions of reads and doing the stuff. So maybe there is something to that. I am just with that particular hire, I'm just in that mindset, and I think like a lot of fans of a lot of teams are in the mindset of, well, this is the reality of it. This is the guy, so let's look for the bright sides of it. You know what I'm saying? Like, here he is. Oh, I guess that's better than Dayball. Well, that's a bad example, but Jim Bob Cooter or some of these other guys who are coming around because he's young and because he played for McVay or he was on the bench for McVay. I guess that's fine. I guess it has to be fine.
Yeah, and I just think the way that this search played out,
Yeah.
again, I
Right.
got killed for repeating this on social media a few different places. It
Right.
felt like Brian Dable and Mike McDaniel, and now we see it with Declan Doyle.
Yes.
They went quarterback situation shopping, right? Like
Yeah.
they spoke with the Eagles, and Brian Dable ran to Cam Ward and Robert Saleh. Mike McDaniel ran to Justin Herbert. Declan Doyle got hired
Yeah.
by Baltimore to coach Lamar Jackson.
Right.
They found someone who wants to be here, wants to
Right.
coach Jalen Hurts, and whose skill set and scheme might match some of what the perceived deficiencies of Jalen Hurts has become. That's kind of why I like the hire, because it didn't seem like there were people lining up to take this job, even with a
I,
Saquon Barkley and an AJ Brown and a Jalen Hurts being here.
I don't think Jalen Hurts was the guy they were saying no to.
No,
I think it was the boss.
yeah.
And that's the worry. It's like, oh, I've got other options. You're the offensive coordinator for Jim Harbaugh. You are running the offense. And both Harbaughs can be an absolute DICK behind the scenes, so we both know that. But they're going to let you do your job in that structure, and they're going to draw attention to themselves and their Harry Hoo Ha high school routines and things like that. I don't know how comfortable some of the more experienced people were dealing with Sirianni.
What was your
That's scary.
favorite? Yeah, what was your favorite hire of this cycle? Because I think there were a couple that really stood out. I have two that stood up above the rest. I was curious what you thought, because I read the column and I enjoyed it, but figured I would pick your brain in person here.
I was going to say Harbaugh, and I still like the Harbaugh hire, don't get me wrong. But I go back to looking at Kevin Stefanski and realize that he's a two-time NFL Coach of the Year. Now, you can what too much can be made about that, but two-time NFL Coach of the Year is sitting there, okay? And after dealing with Deshaun Watson and Shador Sanders, Penix and Cousins are going to look like Montana and Young to him. Oh, both of them show up to work and are normal and are not perverts and like all these other positive things. Are bare minimum. And Stefanski goes in there and he gets Bijan, he gets Drinkland, he gets the offensive line. That's going to be smooth. Now, I don't know if that converts to wins for the Falcons. But they brought in a guy who's going to, put a structure and is going to bring the best out of these guys.
To me, it's Harbaugh, because he's a
Yeah,
culture
yeah,
driver, and
yeah.
he's exactly what the Giants kind of perceive themselves to be.
Uh-huh.
He's the embodiment of once a Giant, always a Giant, and I think that he's brought in. He can build a staff around him of Matt Nagy coming in that
Yeah.
can kind of convince Jackson Dart not to become a kamikaze, headfirst diver on all of his scrambles and runs. But taking the chalk off the table, I really like what they're doing in Baltimore. I think that when you bring in the head coach Jesse Minter, kind of can be that CEO type, similar to Harbaugh, with a more defense leaning focus on things. But I like
Okay.
the Declan Doyle
Yeah.
hire. I think you bring
Yeah.
in a guy who got to learn from Ben Johnson for a year, and he's now coaching Lamar Jackson, and he has speed all over the place to kind of do what the Bears were trying to do on the perimeter offensively this year. And then you bring in Anthony Weaver, and that defensive coordinator. He's a guy that I think is still kind of on the ascent.
Uh,
Great defensive mind. They needed a defensive, tactician. They got one. I kind of like what Baltimore's doing there in that division. It might be the best coaching staff of a very a
yeah.
very unimpressive, uninspiring bunch in that division.
By the way, every time I hear the name Declan Doyle, I hear stereotypical Irish jig music. It's like in movie Sinners. I don't think you've seen the movie Sinners because you have like 7-year-olds in the house and you can't see movies like that. But at one point, there's a bunch of Irish vampires jigging to music. And that's what I hear when it's Declan Doyle. But yeah, I mean, I like that. I like what the Ravens did. I like Nagy. I mean, I don't like Nagy, but I like Nagy. You bring somebody in. Made Mitch Trubisky look good for a year and a half. Can work with somebody like Dart and put a structure in place that makes sense. Good at that coordinator level with somebody else being the person who makes more of the executive decisions. I don't think that's a bad hire for the Giants. What do you have as your worst hire?
Worst hire? I'm going to go to Cleveland. I don't love Greg Roman. I don't love the way that process played out. Maybe it's
That's
because
market.
I'm
Monken.
Oh, Monken, excuse me.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't love Todd Monken.
Okay.
I don't love the way the process played out. I don't love throwing Jim Schwartz under the bus. I don't love
Yeah.
alienating Miles Garrett. I don't love. You know what this reminds me of? This reminds me of back in the day when Norman Brayman fired uh, Buddy Ryan, only to pass over Jeff Fisher to hire Rich Kotite.
Oh
This is
God.
what this feels like to me, because I know that Jim Schwartz flamed out in Detroit, but he was walking into a not great situation. We didn't know all those players, didn't know what made them tick. That defense runs through walls for him. That defense loves Jim Schwartz. They play above their heads for them. And it just feels like the Browns went out of their way to alienate half of their roster.
Yeah, I know the process in Cleveland sucked, but you sound like you have inside information. How bad did it suck?
Well, I talked to an
You
agent about this right
okay?
after the job came open, and I said, "Hey, what do you think?" And he told me he doesn't speak to the Browns on behalf of his guys. That there are
Oh wow.
31 teams in the NFL opinion in the NFL league for his guys. That they are the most toxic people
Right.
in sports. So
Right.
when you have that backdrop of how they operate there, and then you have the reporting of Jim Schwartz basically telling people, "I'm out, I'm leaving, I don't care that I'm under
Right.
contract, I'm sick and tired of being passed over." That
Right.
doesn't. I don't think that sits well with a defense that was punching above its weight, or carrying an offense that did nothing for you on its back for the last 3 years.
And it was clear that they were stringing him along
Yes.
throughout the process with the possibility that it's going to be him. While several candidates publicly backed out of this, and probably were stringing him on to the last second because Munkin's hire came in pretty quickly at the end.
Yeah.
It was a little bit of an about face at the end. For example, Harbaugh thought Munkin was with him in New York, and literally it's like he drove, took I-280, went through the mountains, wound up in Cleveland by mistake. But I don't mind Munkin as a hire, and I still think Schwartz might be back there for a year. I think that this is probably a financial apology situation for somebody who won't want to pull up. He's not going to want to pull up stakes and wind up being a deputy defensive coordinator or consultant or passing game coordinator somewhere. Schwartz will probably stay if they pony up. And then for a year or so, it's okay. The problem is it's the Browns. They make the best hire in the world. What does that mean? 5-12 next year? What does it mean?
Yeah, two things. One, I don't understand going offense when you have so much uncertainty at the quarterback position, right?
Right.
I just don't understand why you lean into that side of the ball when you've been carried by your defense and you have a
Right.
defensive tactician there in waiting. And I can understand where Schwartz was so annoyed because it happened so late in the process. It wasn't
Yeah.
just that other head coaching vacancies filled, but these head coaches are already building out their
Yeah.
staffs,
Yeah.
hiring their defensive coordinator. So you've backed him into a corner where he has to accept your financial apology to
Right.
come back there. So it just seems like they've created this toxic situation for themselves when you had no reason to. When you could have hired, Lunda Wells as your offensive coordinator. You could have hired Greg Roman. You could have gotten Darren Bevel. You could have gotten all the, third tier offensive coordinator searches candidates that the Jets are interviewing to be the head
Right.
coach of your offense, right? I mean, and figured out the quarterback position while you're building a defense that's top three in the league. They didn't want to go that route, but they're far
They
away from a Super Bowl as they ever have been.
didn't want to go that route. Although when you say things, the third tier people that the Jets are interviewing, it is sort of telling where you're at. Like, here are your options. Like, like I listened to them, I was like, well, I guess I'm glad the Eagles didn't bring in Greg Roman. Bevel, but yeah, when you start talking about them for the Browns, but my worst hire was McCarthy in Pittsburgh.
Yes.
Don't understand the point, don't understand the goal, don't understand why this guy is able to go out there and sort of make things up on his resume and fool storied franchises into believing, oh yeah, you must have you developed the Joe Montana. When you were 22 and Montana was 34 with the Chiefs, you revitalized his career. I don't get it. I don't understand what the appeal is of McCarthy at this point. I can't imagine a team whose whole thing for the last 10 years is we make the playoffs, but we don't win when we get there. Bringing in McCarthy, a guy who at his peak since the days when the Steelers were also a Super Bowl team, the last 10 years has gotten to the playoffs in his best years and not done anything when he's got there. Don't understand it. Don't understand it at all.
It's antithetical to everything the Pittsburgh Steelers have ever done. You think about the consistency they've had for 3 generations at the head coaching position.
Yeah.
This is not that. This is
No.
just not that. And you talk
No.
about, the fibs keep getting bigger. It's like Pinocchio's
Right.
nose continues to grow because
Yeah.
it ended with I developed Joe Montana in Joe Montana's back end of the back end of his prime on the
Right.
17th hole of the back nine of his career.
You're
I developed him
right.
then. But that's on top of, and my lasting image of Mike McCarthy will always be the NFL Network long form feature where they dragged the camera crew into his barn. You remember
Barn.
this? When he
Yes.
built the analytics think tank and he
Yeah.
had this coaching staff of like Jim Haslett and all of these assistants and
Oh,
quality control guys pounding away on the laptop, like
yeah.
looking up like analytic scenarios, typing it up, and we're going to be this most analytic coaching staff ever. Haslett, I
Yeah.
don't think, was even hired on that staff with the Cowboys, and he goes and becomes one of the most conservative play callers on third and fourth down once he's in Dallas. So it's completely behind the point that he was diving into analytics, and yet he has this superpower of convincing billionaires that he's this visionary and he's going to be a great head coach. I don't get it. Dan Rooney hired Noel, Cowher, and Tomlin. The
Yeah.
Nepo baby hired McCarthy, according to George McKelvey. Great
Okay.
line. Great
That's
line.
great. That's great. It's an indication that like they don't know what they want anymore. The next generation taking over doesn't know what it wants. It's grabbing guys. Aaron Rodgers, Russell Wilson, that was grabbing a guy. Now McCarthy's grabbing a guy. I love that barn because he made it sound like it was a Cracker Barrel. And then when you went in there, it was sort of like the worst little startup. Like if you wind up in a boiler room operation that's a startup, like a telemarketing firm, and yeah, all the guys from 33rd team who couldn't get jobs and were like putting resume lines on each other's CVs. We're in there, and the Pro Football Focus guys running around like, we approve this on behalf of all of analytics, like no one asked you. And look how great that worked out, but that's my worst hire. I do like some of the coaches. He brought in Patrick Graham, some of the other people. I know he's retaining staff. You can always do that thing. Buffalo Bills are doing the same thing. Hey, he brought in some good assistants. The good assistants are out there.
Yeah. You can
It starts
shake a
with
tree and find a good assistant.
Right. The good assistants are out there. It's like, did you get the right guy on top? And how crappy was your process? The process in Cleveland was bad. The process in Buffalo was bad. I don't know if there was a process in Pittsburgh.
No, I think that Dan Rooney just looked around and said, the latest Rooney who looked around and said, he's from Pittsburgh. He probably likes Permane Brothers. So let's bring him in. We'll take him from Permane Brothers, and decided to take the job.
Well, you can't blame him for that. But under those circumstances, they could have hired me. Although I don't get the whole other stuff on the sandwich. What is that?
It's like French fries and coleslaw. I don't do coleslaw, period.
Okay. How do those things improve the sandwich? They are wonderful sides.
Yes.
I don't get it. I don't get it, Pittsburgh. Do better. Okay.
I'd rather go to that fat food truck outside of Rutgers where they throw like the mozzarella sticks and chicken cutlets and the fries on the sandwich. I'd rather go there than a Permane Brothers.
Yeah, 50-50 on that one too. I've gone to that one a couple of times. And I by the time I got there, I was at an age where I could not possibly be hungover enough to need all of that food and every single bite that I ate. Plus they used the yellow mustard there. We're going off way on a tangent here. Let's not get too deeply into the sandwiches. What else is on the schedule today? Oh,
what if we stick with the food and we stick to ordering mac and cheese for dessert? You remember that down in Atlanta?
I do, and I read your article, and I recognize some of the photos, and a lot of them. So a couple of times I'm in the story,
yes,
but other times it's like you wandered away from me, and then this next thing happens. For example, in Minnesota at the Super Bowl, the Eagles against the Patriots Super Bowl, at the Mall of America, you wound up on a zip line because you listened to Nestor Aparicio.
Not a sound life decision. Not the dumbest life decision I've ever made, as the column shows. But after about 6 Johnny Walkers, getting in line for the zip line probably wasn't the brightest decision I made that night, at the very least. But in my defense, I might have chickened out because I quite frankly don't remember the zip lining. I remember the log flume, but I don't remember whether I actually got on the zip lining or not.
You would remember the zip line.
Yeah.
There's no way you can remember the events leading up to the zip line but then forget this. I have ziplined in my life. It is a memorable experience. I've never done it after 6 Johnny Walkers. I do remember the log flume, but that triggered my vertigo.
I
That
remember this.
that and the six Irish whiskeys or whatever I was drinking, probably vodka tonics that night, but
Probably. Yeah. It was
probably
cold. It was very cold. So you probably went vodka tonic.
it probably went vodka tonic and went on the flume, and like that was it for me. And Nestor was definitely chirping in our ears to a degree, but like if he was trying to sell zipline to me, I was like, "No, straight out, straight out. We're gonna sit with my feet on the ground quietly and eat hors d'oeuvres for a while." This is some of the stuff we do, folks, and you're listening to this. It's like I've said it before. This covering the Super Bowl is like a combination of going to a destination wedding for like your niece who was like really your really demanding niece, mixed with going to the most important and challenging like work convention that you've ever dealt with, where you're working your butt off for X hours and then you are required to party for several hours afterwards because like the social functions are kind of the point.
Yeah, and it's a little bit different than like the combine because the combine is basically the most important convention,
Yeah.
job fair event of the year from a reporting standpoint. The Super
Right.
Bowl, to me, you're trying to grind during the day for like 9 hours to get something that's different than what anybody else is doing, which is nearly impossible to do. And you
Yeah.
swing and miss a lot more than you make contact with the ball. But at
Right.
night, it's like at night at the combine, yes, I'm drinking, but I'm drinking and I'm talking to General Manager X or I'm meeting
Yeah.
Y over coffee to like strengthen relationships or make new contacts. At the
Right.
Super Bowl, I'm just there to party. I'm just there to let loose. And like, hey, I'm blowing off steam from all of the writing I just did for the last 9 hours. I'm gonna go ride the log flume with Tanya, or I'm gonna go smoke cigars, or I'm gonna do something to like just turn off for a few hours.
Well, the media party is like that because there is nothing else that needs to be done during that. We are there and we are being feted. That's our one day that we get treated like kings. But if you wind up at the other parties, it's usually that kind of see and be seen thing where it's like, and a lot of times it's like, well, Bleacher Report has scored an invitation for you to go to this Madden party, and it's like suddenly you're obligated to go. And my saving grace after a year or two of that was being so obviously not the right demographic for this that they started sending like younger and more dynamic people to these parties. And then sometimes you'll have a thing where it's like, oh, New York Times, all the reporters are having a dinner, and you have to go to the New York Times dinner.
I think I crashed that with you one time. I think I crashed that dinner with you one time. Or I showed up late because I was having dinner at the same place, and you had some
Okay,
sort of smoking cocktail. The cocktail was like smoking inside the glass.
Houston, was it
I,
Houston?
I think it might have been. Yeah, yeah.
That was the Bleacher Report party, which was livelier because
Okay.
Bleacher Report people are normal people.
Yeah.
So we had the smoking cocktails were amazing. Yeah, you probably showed up, and yeah, Doug Farrar was probably there. Jason Cole was probably there. Mike Freeman was probably there. Matt
Yes.
Miller probably blew us off because he was big timing us, but he was certainly invited, and that was fun. The New York Times dinner is a New York Times dinner. And you have your little top hat and your cigarette with a little filter on it, and it's the Great Gatsby. And when you start doing those things, because like usually like the big boss is there, you know what that's like. You know how much fun that can be.
I've had those dinners. The NJ.com dinners were a slightly looser
Oh,
version of that, but not by much.
right, right. Where especially the editor in chief is there,
Yes.
so you're trying to like have your cocktail while being on your best behavior, and all the time in those situations, you're like, man, I wish I was having a beer with the guys, or boy, if I just go back and go to bed, I'll feel like $1 million tomorrow. But instead, you're trying to have witty repartee with somebody who could fire you the next day if they're not happy with your performance. Good stuff.
How much are you missing this Super Bowl?
I was missing it. First of all, I got a cold. You can hear it. So when I wake up with a cold, I'm thinking what it'd be like to wake up in a cold with a hotel room. Not missing
Not
that.
great. Yeah.
I had the FOMO yesterday. I was talking to Aaron Schatz, and I was like, "You got the FOMO?" And he was like, "I did until I pulled up the shuttle schedules
Oh.
for how long it was going to take to get to media night and back, and when you had to report and where and how much time you were going to be on the shuttles." And instant FOMO cure. Instant FOMO cure for him, for me, the idea that it's like, obviously we love the job. It's not that much of a hardship to be on shuttles. But when I'm sitting here at my desk having a soda, thinking about time change and hotels and everything, not missing it that much. How are you doing?
Yeah, you know what? I had it really bad last year. And I don't know whether it was because
Yeah.
you and I did the podcast and you were down there and I wasn't, but New Orleans is like the creme de la creme Super Bowl host city. I mean, you know this, you're walking everywhere. I could have gone to Cafe Du Monde and got beignets and coffee every day. We could have like gone out and hung on Bourbon Street at night.
Yes.
You know, obviously, you know, former colleagues who are still on the Eagles beat, I could have connected with them. I really missed last year's Super Bowl a lot, and I regret not being able to hang the pennant up on the wall with the other five. This year, I'm kind of okay because
Yeah.
you know San Francisco is such a slog because you're staying in like San Jose and
Yep.
the Seahawks are over here, Patriots are over there. I have flashbacks to the Miami shuttle nightmare where it's like 35 minutes from
God.
anywhere to everywhere from where we were
Yes.
staying. And, you know, I watched Media Night for like all of 10 seconds last night. It was like a warehouse.
What was going on? What was that?
It was weird. Like, I don't understand. Like, I think I might have probably preferred working it more in that environment because you're not in a basketball arena with 10,000 fans. But it was
Uh-huh.
such a sterile, weird setup of like 20 podiums set up in a convention center hallway. It was weird, wasn't it?
I was wondering what was going on, and like on TV, is it always like that now? Because we're used to being at the hockey arena
Yeah.
and it being chaos. And I thought on TV they kept doing wide shots and look at all these media idiots running around tackling each other to get to Brandon Graham or Harrison Butler or somebody like that as we circled around, and that they did all the podiums at once and they had all the hoopla. I thought that's what they did. I tuned in the NFL Network last night, and it's a studio show which looked like it was from LA. And then when they cut to the scene, it was just this like they would just cut to like a close up of the podium. There was none of the, look how powerful the NFL is. These reporters are tackling each other like this was a big political thing or something.
Yeah, I don't know if it's always like that because I've never watched it when it was at, you know, Minute Maid Park in Houston or the
Yeah,
Target Center in Minnesota. I've never maybe that's how it always is.
I don't
You
think
would
no.
think that it would be like scene setting, wide shots, like, hey, here are the crazy fans booing Patrick Mahomes, you know,
Yeah,
because they're Eagles fans during the Chiefs session, or here's the kid with cancer on the robot, you know, driving around to ask
yeah.
questions, like showing that sort of stuff. Last night was just kind of weird, and maybe that's why I don't have much FOMO because it seems like the hype machine that's usually at an 11 doesn't seem to be ratcheting up that much this year.
So if this is always like this, and I apologize, thanks for sticking with us. This is like inside baseball. Maybe you find it
Yeah.
interesting, maybe you don't. Um, if this is the way it is, and it's a studio show now, and then every once in a while they cut to a podium close up, and there's Stephon Diggs talking, and he could be sitting at the headquarters in Foxborough. Then why, when we're there, is the volume at 6,000 decibels, and I've got my recorder like this close to the mouth of like Dallas Goddard or somebody like that, and the volume over the loudspeakers is blah, 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 so that when I try to transcribe later, I can't even hear what my
It's not
recorder.
usable.
Then why is it like that? So either making the television free for all spectacle, hoopla, Hunger Games nonsense. So at least I understand why it's so hard to actually accomplish anything. I'm part of the scene, and that's fine. Or do your studio show and make it quiet in the arena, and don't bring all these fans in the who and ha and everything else like that. Let it be like it was 12, 13 years ago, where it was the media running around, and yeah, the Nickelodeon people and everybody else were there. But we can actually do some reporting. One or
Yeah.
the other. Because this is like, this serves nothing. It's not fun on TV. It's not good for getting any reporting done. And like, there's, I guess, whatever, fans there, but like, it's
Were
the
there
work.
fans last night? I
I don't
didn't even
know.
notice that there was I feel like that last night might have been a return to what you're talking about, a return to back in the day. Remember, it used to be at the stadium, and it would
Yes.
be like at noon, so it was sunny
Yes.
outside, and the players would be scattered throughout the different sections of seating. You
Yes.
could sit down and do some of that reporting. It seems like maybe it got back to that a little bit last night. So for you and I, it's probably better. But for the NFL Network and for the fans, it probably was about as lame as it seemed like it was on TV last night.
Yeah, when it was like 1 o'clock Eastern time, you know what this crazy thing you could do was? You could actually file a story afterwards.
Yeah.
I mean, I can remember in Miami, I was up until 2 something in the morning trying to do a reported set of features for Bleacher Report, then had to wake up at 6:30 in the morning for the final round of editing, and it's like, well, this is less than ideal, but I understood why. If it's just that's what you saw on TV from 8 to 11 did not have to be live.
Right. Right.
If you're just packaging the quotes and then going back to the studio and having the studio talking heads go blah, 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 everything could have happened at, let's say, 2 o'clock local time there, and then a 3-hour delay, and you're watching just this nothing show on NFL Network.
Maybe when we're in Los Angeles next year, maybe that's what it'll be. Let's turn our attention to this game. I want to get your thoughts. The key to the game for you. What's your biggest key?
For me, it's how good is the Patriots' offensive line, particularly for realsies? Because they look like world beaters. Will Campbell and the other rookie look like world beaters. Morgan Moses looked like a world beater against the Jets and the Giants and everybody. The Giants have a good defensive front, but in general. Um, and then the playoffs came, and they hit this combination of the Chargers, who have a decent pass rush, the Texans, who's pass rush, and then the Broncos, who have like pass rush. And May was in trouble frequently and often played like he was in trouble. So you have the Seahawks, who have a great overall defensive structure. Good defensive front, but great overall structure. Will this offensive line be able to let May look like the May that we saw from weeks 1 to whatever, where he was one of the 2 MVP candidates?
Yeah, I'm with you. And I have the 3 key matchups coming out tomorrow. And I touch on that a little bit because when you look at what they did in the regular season, what Drake May did against pressure, and then what happened in those 3 playoff games,
Yes.
it's a bit of a
Yes.
drop off. And it's a bit of a
Yeah.
drop off because Will Campbell lived up to some of those scouting report concerns about the short arms.
Right.
We're gonna see when he's lined up against Demarcus Lawrence on Sunday, if he's able to stand up against a real pass rush like you alluded to. My biggest key: can the Patriots limit Jackson Smith and Jigba's big play, right?
Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
Sam Darnold has 33 deep throws throughout the course of the year. Smith and
Okay.
Jigba, according to PFF, made up 17 of them. So he is their deep threat, as we know.
Right.
Our guy Aaron Schatz at FTM points out that Christian Gonzalez only traveled with the best receiver 24% of the time this
Right.
year.
Right.
If I'm Mike Vrabel and I'm looking at the best receiver that we've played all year,
Right.
penciling in Christian Gonzalez to follow Jackson Smith and Jigba. I want my best corner against their best wide receiver. And Gonzalez is entering on a smoldering hot streak. He has a
Right.
pick, a sack, and a forced fumble in the playoffs so far, and 11 total tackles through 3 games. Throw them one-on-one and let the best man win. Because in a game where it seems like, from talking to people, points may be at a premium, and
Yeah.
maybe it's going to be one of those games where like you spend 2.5 quarters kind of like feeling each other out, figuring it out, defensive slogfest. If I can limit Smith and Jigba's ability to take the top off the ball and then take the top off the defense, I'm going to feel pretty good about my chances if I'm New England.
You said it right. And Gonzalez, before that hot streak, was 3 or 4 weeks when just no one threw anywhere near him.
Yeah.
So it's like, it's hard to have a hot streak when it's like, we're not even throwing to your side of the field. And then before that, he was injured. So like when he's been available, he's been great. But yeah, Vrabel prefers keeping him, I believe, on the offensive right side of the field, although I get my right and left mixed up. Super Bowl's a time when you can mix up some of these tendencies. You can throw in the, you're shadowing a guy, because you're right. The deep passing game for Darnold has either been Jackson Smith-Njigba or a surprise. You didn't think we were throwing deep to him. It was Horton early in the season, but like the mystery guy who got deep because he's being covered by the safety or the slot person. So you can limit the Seahawks more thoroughly if you put Gonzalez on JSN. Let me ask you this. What's the storyline that you find most interesting?
Yeah, I think it's this talk about the Patriots beginning a new dynasty. And I know you're going to hate it, but
Yeah.
you look at, the homegrown talent that they have with Drake May, Trevion Henderson, Kayshon Boutte, Jaden Higgins, Kyle Williams, not Jaden Higgins. I love Williams last year at the Senior Bowl. High-priced talent on defense like Carlton Davis and Milton Williams. We talked about Christian Gonzalez. We talked about the young pieces they have all over the place. And more than anything, I wrote about it last week. Mike Vrabel ditching the most grating, oppressive, stressful aspects of the Patriot
Yeah,
way and
yeah,
leaning into his players first coaching mentality. It just feels like, yeah, we can point to the soft schedule, which maybe we're going to find out against Seattle that that's what they are. And
uh-huh,
that's why this is such a fascinating storyline. But if they go out and they win this game against that team, you start to look around the rest of the AFC. They, at least from my stance, they have the most staying power of a lot of these contenders. You have legitimate questions in Cincinnati about their coach's future and
right,
these whispers about Joe Burrow. I don't know what Baltimore is going to be from here. I certainly don't know what Pittsburgh is going to be. It just
right,
seems like if they get this one, if they get one under their belt against this team, it could be a launch pad for them. Now
right,
feel free to
and
tear it down.
well, I mean, the big 3 are all a crossroads right now. Chiefs, Bills, and Ravens say, "Well, this is a crossroads." Don't think they're going away forever, but there's this middle pot where a team could rise up. Patriots have demonstrated the ability to do that. I hate that storyline.
I know you do. I
Yeah,
know.
and I could like pick that, but again, a little more inside baseball. One reason why I hate the storyline, and I think I've told you this in the past, every year Bleacher Report assigned me to write the "Is this the beginning of a dynasty" for the winner. Is this the beginning of a dynasty? Now, for any other team, it's like it's annoying and it's cloying and it's ridiculous. I had to write it for like the Peyton Manning Broncos. Is this the beginning of a dynasty? It's like the starting quarterback is retiring after the game. No, but I still had to like sort of straight facedly write it. It was a assignment on high. Now, for any team, that's a little bit annoying. For the Patriots, it's like F you. F you is
Salt
a
in the wound. Salt
F
in the
you is
wound.
a 3. But I mean, there are legitimate things. Like obviously, Drake May and Mike Vrabel are the start of something big, and they do have young talent. It is. I just hate that storyline. But you know what other
Yeah.
storylines I hate about this game?
What else do you hate about this game?
All of them. I hate all the storylines. I am not motivated or interested in this game. I am not interested in the Sam Darnold redemption storyline. I am not interested in comparisons to the Legion of Boom. I am not interested in Malcolm Butler. I am not interested in May versus Brady or whatever. I'm sorry. I don't mean to be this way. But like somebody win, it's exciting. I put a little column together. I, well,
Maybe that's why I don't have FOMO because I don't really love this matchup. Right?
right.
Like, look, I can make the same dynasty argument about the Seahawks based on
We
what
all
Mike
could.
McDonald has done and
Yeah.
how young they are at key spots on defense and how, they're 11 sledgehammers on both sides of the ball. I
Right.
should be in love with that team and in love with
Yeah.
that whole situation. But it just, something about it. Like they're so good from the metrics and the analytics
Right.
standpoint. And the Patriots might benefit from this soft schedule, but there's just not a whole lot that has me like on the edge of my seat, like counting down the seconds to this thing, like it
Right.
typically does in a Super Bowl setting.
Right, right. Like I can't wait to get there and interview and introduce to the world the exciting personality that is Devin Witherspoon. I don't know, maybe he's an exciting personality, but and that's fine. And I like watching the team. I kind of like watching the Patriots too, honestly. But there is a underwhelmingness about this combination. Maybe because it was the Eagles a couple times in the last few years, and here in Philly it was easy to get excited about that. Maybe it's because the Chiefs were loaded with personality. And I think the 49ers, when they would get in, were loaded with personality. Kittle's going to be there. He's interesting. Oh, there's another quarterback that we get to talk about. Nick Bosa, he's going to say something crazy and inappropriate and make us uncomfortable, but it's going to click. Uh, I don't, Debo, I don't know who those people are. And all the storylines about this game feel like things that like we could have like come up with like 3 weeks ago, and fun for casual fans, I'm sure, but like, sure,
It's funny because the casual fans are probably loving the fact that the Chiefs were irrelevant, like down
yeah,
the stretch, and that it could be somebody else other than the Chiefs.
right,
I'm kind of the weirdo who loves greatness, right? Like I
that'd
cheered
be okay.
for Tiger Woods. I wore the Sunday red when I played golf, and I had no business, comparing my game to Tiger Woods in any way,
Uh,
shape, or form. But I wore the red.
uh-huh,
I kind of like guilty pleasure the Belichick Brady years because they
yeah,
were so good, and I love watching greatness.
Right.
The Chiefs were like greatness of this era, and
Right.
Mahomes. There's always the what's going to be the holy shit moment for Patrick Mahomes, and it's
Right.
Andy Reid, and it's Travis Kelsey, and it's Chris Jones, and it's personalities, out the
Yes.
wazoo leading up to it. Just feels like it kind of meh. This whole week feels like meh. We'll see what happens. Maybe it'll be a great game. Defensive, slugfest, offensive firepower.
Yeah.
We'll see. We'll
It
see.
could be a great game, but right now I'm old. I have a cold. There's snow on the ground,
It's not
and
melting.
all of my bandwidth is starting to think about 2026 storylines, coaching hires, free agency, salary cap. I apologize for folks who are looking for like wild, interesting coverage. There'll be some stuff, but like I'm not thinking about this game.
Yeah, that said, I do think that the three keys to the game piece will be interesting for people tomorrow.
Of
I
course,
tried to dive into the analytics and some of the
good,
metrics to pick the matchups and find strength on strength. So I think fans and readers and subscribers will enjoy that. And there might be a feature coming Friday if I have the bandwidth to put it all together. Um, and then there'll be a prediction piece. So there's a lot coming in between the hash
right?
marks. It's a good time to jump on board and
But
subscribe. But what do you have coming up at Two Deep Zone?
that's it. Better you than me. You did an analytics piece. I don't have to,
One
and
less
it's
thing for you
perfect.
to do while
It's
you're under the weather.
one last thing to do to go. And of course, Aaron, if you go to FTN, you'll find all kind of stuff. Brian Knowles and Aaron Schatz, they've been doing all the analytics of this game. You've done it. Everybody else has got it covered. What's coming up is I'm starting my offseason previews, and we're going to start with the Cowboys and the Giants and the Eagles, previewing the offseason. In a lot of cases, it's basically talking about the new coaching changes on the teams and talking a little bit about the state of the roster, and then going into the cap situation for in a lot of cases. And remember, a cap situation isn't going to overthecap.com, looking at a red number or a blue number and saying this. It's going in, seeing what they can renegotiate. I'm sorry. I wasn't attacking you.
Okay,
You
I was
feel
just making sure.
I wasn't attacking you. I'm
I
sorry.
thought I thought I was catching
You thought
strays.
you guilty conscience. I, it's not you, man. It's not you.
I'm looking at NFLPA database and saying, okay, here's the number. When you're juggling like 15
Oh,
different, aggregation
yes.
responsibilities on top of trying to do quality, you go to the NFLPA, you look at the number, the number's the number. I'll leave it to you to do the deep dives into the cap.
I feel like we've reached a really dark place of negativity here, so we're going to back it out a little bit, rephrase it. I take pride in examining the cap in a certain way from years of experience and a mathematics background to check for things like the in-house free agents and look for the potential restructures and who might be looking for an extension down the line. For example, when you talk about the Atlanta Falcons, I think folks know that Kyle Pitts is a free agent. So if you're enthusiastic about bringing back Pitts, as a lot of Falcons fans are, you have to price in millions of dollars onto the fact that they have like 22 million in cap space. Also, if you're thinking about the Falcons, Bijan Robinson is now eligible for an extension. Bijan Robinson knows this. Bijan Robinson knows he's a running back and wants to cash in immediately. So the Falcons, when they see 22 million in cap space, Falcons fans see $22 million in cap space, would have to say, we have to put in a Bijan extension in there right now. Things like that. So that's the kind of off-season previewing I'm doing over the next couple of weeks. Not just about the Falcons. In fact, not even primarily about the Falcons, but all 32 teams. Sorry that took so long and got so weird.
What has gotten into you? Because you are the king of never betting the Falcons, of leading into the Falconsing as a storyline every week. Your favorite hire is Kevin Stefanski, which I tend to agree with. I love the Kevin Stefanski hire. I picked him to win the division off the cuff the other week, and I stand by it. You love Stefanski. You're looking into the Atlanta Falcons cap situation. Yeah, did the
I,
mac and cheese for dessert like
I, I,
set your mind back to Atlanta or what?
Yeah, here's a little secret. I just finished the rough draft of the Falcons. So I should have done the Eagles. I was going to go, well, the Eagles show about $25 million in cap space, but Dallas Goedert is a free agent, and you have extensions, and you can't renegotiate A.J. Brown's contract anymore. So, like, all of that was there, but because I just did the Falcons, I just did a long Falcons example. I feel terrible. This is the worst podcast we've ever done. We couldn't even get the links right. It's going off the rails rapidly. And you already told me what you got coming up, but why don't we restack that? You've got all this really cool Super Bowl stuff. We talked about how crappy the Super Bowl is going to be, and now you've got all this great Super Bowl content to try to sell here.
Yeah, go check out the site today. We got my top 10 moments and memories
Yeah,
from my 5 Super Bowls. It's a lot of fun. It's free for all. Go check it out. Tomorrow we break down the 3 key matchups that are going to define the game, could win the game. There might be a feature coming later in the week. There might not be. We will see if we can put it all together. And then the mailbag on Friday. So it's a busy week.
it's a busy, busy week, and there'll be no rest for the wicked. We'll probably take a little break beginning of next week, and both of us will probably be right back into it. And I think we'll probably be here Tuesday podcasting. Is that correct?
Yeah, we'll recap the game. Why not recap the Super Bowl, right? We'll look ahead to the combine and some of the things that we have coming up. I can't wait to get out to Indy. We'll do a live pod from there too. Maybe we'll commandeer a table at Prime 47 and do the pod there.
Yeah, I guarantee you the bandwidth will be amazing in terms of the internet. If we're recapping the game, maybe we move it to Monday.
Yeah, let's do that. Yeah,
Let's move it to Monday. Move it to
move it to
Monday at
Monday.
1 o'clock next week, and then we can recap the game, do all of our other media, and then maybe pass out on Tuesday, back to work on
Yes.
Wednesday.
He's Mike Tanier. Follow him on Blue Sky at Mike Tanier. You can check out the Two Deep Zone on Substack. Be sure to subscribe there. Mandatory reading, if only for the walkthrough this past Monday. It was terrific. I'm Matt Lombardo. You can check us out on YouTube at Matt Lombardo 975. Subscribe to the podcast in the Apple Podcast Store. Leave us a 5-star rating and review. We'll read those reviews every week on the show as they come in. And check out Between the Hash Marks on Substack. Mike, you call it the worst podcast ever. I had a ton of fun. It was great. I think it might be more entertaining than the game on Sunday, but I can't wait till next Monday now to do it all over again.
I'm not sure I agree, but I had fun. Take care, everybody. See
Thanks
you next
everybody for
week.
listening. We'll see you. Enjoy the game.